This video is a guide to using the Team Drive to print and download all the material you're going to need for your lesson. We'll also find out how to print and look through the additional teacher resources folder. To access the drive, you will first need to receive your APAC's email address. This should be sent to you from IT here at the head office on Monday following your training week. If you remember from your training week, there are 6 books per term: A1, A2, A3, B1, B2 and B3. Here on my drive, you can see that the books are labelled A2, A3, B1, B2. The remaining books would be shared with you throughout the term. iGarden materials folder here, that contains the prep material for iGarden classes as covered in iGarden training. And finally, teacher resource folder. This contains information such as student management folders and pay related information. So we'll take a look at that later on in the video. First, let's take a look in the B2 folder, which contains all the material for the April program. Okay, first we need to know what level we're teaching. We can find that information on our schedule, which was provided by your head teacher at your center. Let's say for this example, we're teaching a Seedbed 1 class. Next, we need to know what lesson it is today. We can find that information on the operation plan that's also located in your training binder. Let's say for this example, you're teaching a lesson 1. So down the bottom here, we can see some useful additional resources that can help you during your class, such as flashcards and answer keys for the lesson. There's also notes so you can track your students' character throughout the lesson, and the guide for the 4 traits you would enter in on the odd lesson. So that would be grit, zest, social intelligence and self-control. So how do students display these traits in class? We also have some folders up the top here. So the first students folder will contain information that you need to print for your students for that lesson. So here we have a review quiz. So I would always print and bring my review quiz on odd lessons. Next, we'll take a look at the speaking goals. Here we can see the speaking goals for today's lesson. So you can open these up and download them before your lesson begins, so you can easily bring them up on the smartboard. Now let's take a look at the circle time. So you can open this up using perhaps Drive, or again download it and open it up on Gate so you can write on the material. And finally, we have our character lesson guide. So this will tell you what traits are in the story, some questions to ask about the story to elicit those traits, and some questions in order to relate the trait to students' lives. So it's very important to look through this before your lesson begins. Okay, that was an example of looking through one lesson and seeing what we needed to print and prepare for class. Next, we're going to take a quick look through the teacher resources folder. So I'm just going to go through the main folders that you're going to use when you first reach your center. In the first one, we can see the CTP resource folder, and this contains the workshop that you will do on your final day of training. So it will go over the guidelines for recording a CTP, so that can be useful to refer to that in future. Next, the character growth card. So here is the growth card itself, which tells you how the students display these traits during class and how to grade them. And the character behavior, language and action plans. So here are a lot of different plans and routines you can build into your class in order to positively reinforce the traits throughout the lesson, therefore turning it into a routine. Next, let's take a look at the Pay Explained folder. Here you can see a comprehensive tax guide, how to explain your payslip in English, international transfers, an FAQ, and down here we have an Excel sheet where you can put in your gross salary and it should give you roughly your net salary after tax. moving on, we have the student management folder. So this contains some materials you're going to need to print when you first reach your center. So if you remember from your training week, we had the discipline checklist to fill out when students receive 3 X's, and you would hand that then to the CM at your center in order to save time in class. So make sure you print out a couple of these and have them on your notice board. Next, we have letters of concern. So you can send a letter of concern home for behavior, e-learning, homework, and not bringing books to class. So if your student repeatedly does not meet requirements in these areas, you can send a letter home to their parents, and then you would record that on LMS. So make sure you print out and have a couple of letters for each issue in your classroom. And finally, down the bottom of the teacher resource folder, you can see the classroom preparation guide. And the purpose of this is to help you plan out your lesson. So you would write your lesson, your objectives, your preparation goals, and then your lesson goals. So this is a great tool to help you teach high quality lessons, and often your head teacher might assign different areas of this guide in order for you to prep. Okay, this was a quick overview to using Google Drive in order to print and download material for class, and some additional teacher resources that you're going to need when you first reach your center. Thanks for listening.